Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Good evening and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Wednesday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national. It's 7 minutes past the top of the hour, and I'm blessed to be here with you. Here's the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And yet another witness has now pled the their Fifth Amendment constitutional right to avoid self-discrimination. This time, it was Jill Biden's chief of staff. Of course, this is in the congressional testimony that was, or the subpoenas that were issued requesting their testimony about Biden's fitness for office. As you'll recall, the last witness was the physician. And the physician, the White House physician, where he was asked, have you ever had to lie about the president's health? And B, in your assessment, was the president fit to be president, to, discharge his duties? And he said he pled the fifth on both of those first two questions that were asked by the chairman of the Oversight Committee, James Comer. And that was shocking to the world, right? We had a physician on. We had Dr. Josh McConkey on. He's a colonel in the United States Army, and he's running for lieutenant governor as well. And he weighed in and said, as a physician, I can't see how anybody would say something like that. So that was odd. But now today we've got the chief of staff in the office of the first lady. I was going to call her the vice president. In effect, she was probably the de facto president. Jill Biden, she prefers to be called Dr. Jill Biden. Dr. Jill's chief of staff went in today saying the same thing. I plead the fifth. Listen to this.
Well, unfortunately, that was quick. This is the second witness that we've brought in via subpoena for a deposition that has pled the fifth, and they've stated they're not going to answer questions. I want to read the first two questions, just so everyone knows. These are the types of questions we ask. Was Joe Biden fit to exercise the duties of the president? He pled the fifth. Second question, did any unelected official or family member execute the duties of the presidency? And this is Jill Biden's chief of staff.
So now we have a second witness that also can't, be on record, has to remain silent, can't talk about this. He was the chief of staff to the First Lady of the United States, and he cannot say if the president was fit to do his job. You've got to think of the implications of that, right? Now, listen, I get it. He's entitled to be quiet. He's better off saying nothing than saying something that can be misconstrued. I've been told by family members and others that have served in federal law enforcement, never cooperate with the FBI, ever, under any circumstance. Always let your lawyer do the talking, all the talking. So imagine, an FBI agent comes to your house, DHS, anybody, hey, we're looking for illegal immigrants. Maybe you could help us out. I'm wondering if sorry, I can't help you. Pleading the fifth. Call my lawyer, right? It's odd, right? It'd be, we've got nothing to hide. Just if you're not concealing anything, that's what they're going to say. That's what they always say. I've been told, and literally, I've never met a federal law enforcement officer that told me to cooperate with federal law enforcement, ever. So it's my rule of thumb. So listen, I get why but these guys aren't law enforcement. They're Congress people, right? This is an oversight committee hearing. He's under oath, but this is for oversight, congressional oversight. These guys aren't cops. They're congressmen. Why not give them a straight answer like, look, from what I could see, he seemed fine. Joe's always been a little bit aloof, but come on, he was okay. No, no, no. They won't do that. I plead the Fifth Amendment, which is usually led by, like what I just said, under the advice of counsel, right? That's usually how they do it. So really just disheartening, disappointing. This adds so much fuel to the fire when President Donaldus Magnus El Trompito, the 45th and 47th president of these United States, when he says that the auto pen scandal is the biggest scandal in American history, right? When he says that, this just adds to that, right? If it wasn't, you would want to undercut him, right? He says, this is huge, huge, biggest scandal ever. You want to go up there and go, it's not a big scandal. I think he was fine. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. But no, they're not. They're coming in saying, I plead the Fifth, which sounds to me like Trump was right. So that's all I could say about that one. Now, we also have President Trump making many statements today coming out of the White House, not the least of which is number 18. He's sitting in the Oval Office at the White House with the Prime Minister of Bahrain. Now, Bahrain, who was one of the first signatories to the Abraham Accords when Trump brought peace to the Middle East back in 2018, 2019, that first go-round of the Abraham Accords, they were all on board. And this time, they're on board again. But to do business with the United States, right? Bahrain has now announced that they are going to invest, I think it's $17 billion into the economy to start. And there was, it seems like they have a very good agreement and a really good relationship going. So, kudos to the administration for continuing to secure money. Yesterday was $500 million from Apple saying that they're going to be, spending that here in the United States exclusively. Now you've got Bahrain coming in saying $17 billion. The last trip to the UAE was, I forget how many billions. This is a considerable investment that is beyond the $121 billion that have been added to the Treasury's coffers by way of the tariffs. So work is getting done. Of course, there's somebody somewhere that's going to say, oh, but come on, Rich, with $36 trillion and counting in national debt, that's just a drop in the bucket. To that person, I say, I would hate to be in your company all the time. Like, I feel bad for those people that are always around you. I'm not saying it's a drop in the bucket or a tsunami or anything like that. I'm just saying Trump's putting in that work. That's all I'm saying. Of course, they're going to retort and say, he's got to put in that work. He just spent 36, Lord knows how many, whatever's in the big, beautiful bill. Okay, thank you very much. Gotcha. Nothing is ever enough. There's a name for those people, right? We got to ask one of our psychologists that visit the show. What do they call those people? My clinical term for them is pendejo. But, to each his own, right? Anyway, Trump is in the Oval Office, and he's asked about, of all things, Epstein. He's asked about, hey, are you upset that some of your supporters are turning on you now because they think that you did an about face on this Epstein thing? Now, yesterday, I thought we kind of cleared some of this up, right? I think Alan Dershowitz gave probably the best response to this, that this is not about an about face. This is about some redacted information by some lawyers. Now, listen, I'm trying to keep up as much as the next guy. I never believed anything was coming out of this. To me, this was always just the worm at the end of the hook to get people excited and interested and into the fold. But I think Trump did more than most and way more than I expected him to do on that front and talked way more about it being such an older issue. Right? It's not like if you release these files, somehow magically children stop being hurt. It's not like if you release these files or unredact these names, somehow, it helps a certain person. Now, I don't know the reason for these things being blocked out, and I'm with you. Show me what you're hiding from me in our American federal government. I want to know. Sure, I'd love to see these names. Do I really care? Probably not. But I care about what happened. I don't care who's doing it, right? Lock them up if you can. If you can't because you cut some sort of deal, we got to move on, right? I know. I guess the little bit of time I spent in government messed me up. There's all too many deals that are made. But I want you to hear President Trump's, it's about a minute long, his response about supporters that are turning their backs on him because of Jeffrey Epstein.
Central this morning, you mentioned past supporters when you were talking about the Epstein issue. Does that mean that you're effectively disowning any supporters who are now calling?
I lost a lot of faith in certain people, I lost, because they got duped by the Democrats. The Democrats are good for nothing. They've done a terrible job. They almost destroyed our country. If I didn't get elected, all these numbers you're hearing about, they found $25 billion and another 25 is coming in and hundreds of billions of dollars is pouring into our country. And we just got the biggest tax cut in history. We just got the biggest regulation cuts in history. There'll be no tax on tips. There'll be no tax on Social Security. There'll be no tax on overtime. There'll be no tax on so many other things. You're allowed to deduct your interest from a car payment. That's never happened before. You borrow interest. You borrow money to buy a car if the car is made in America. And by the way, factories are being built all over America, car factories, AI factories, but you get a deduction on your interest. Nobody ever thought of that before. It never happened before. And, these are the things that they should be talking about.
Now, listen, I don't disagree with the president here. I'm with him all the way. I understand why people are upset on the merit of it, right? On the principle of it. I understand it. Some people made this their single issue. They're like, look, I don't like politics a whole lot, but, I'm going to vote for Trump because he's going to declassify information. And that declassification, this is what makes me tick, folks. Oh, boy, this is what I need. I need to be declassified. To those people, I say, I think you need to be classified as a nut job. I'm kidding. I've always thought, again, this is an ongoing battle that I have with my brother who he lives in a rearview mirror. He wants the federal guy. It'll make his day. Joy will spring from inside of him the day that the government says, my fellow Americans. And it has to start with the emergency broadcast system. That doo, this is a test, or this is not a test, right? One of those types of things. And then the president, my fellow Americans. No, it's not Reagan, it's Trump. Fellow Americans, aliens are real. Blank, blank, and blank were clients of Jeffrey Epstein's. I told you they were dirty. I told you they were crooked. Oh, boy, we're going to have him hanged. We're going to hang him in Guantanamo. Oh, it's going to be glorious. The golden age is upon us. This is what they want to hear. And I don't live in that world, right? I live in a world where I understand that there are actions, there are reactions. I know how Washington works. I understand how politics works. I know that, for every punch you throw, you're getting a couple right back at you. I think Trump understands this extraordinarily well. So I'm looking for those wins. I'm looking for no tax on my car payment, on the interest part of my car payment. I like that idea. I like a lot of the things that are helping people in this country. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, those types of things. Fantastic to me. The fact that people are starting new factories, bringing jobs here to the United States. We need that type of future for our kids. Finding out who the scumbags are that are being protected by some judge in the civil lawsuit and the criminal case or whatever against Jeffrey Epstein, who's dead, by the way, and was in jail when he died. So, again, justice was served. Finding out who these people are, I don't lose sleep over that. I do lose sleep over handling our future national debt. Again, not eliminating it, but reducing it to the point where our GDP is in the safe zone, where we're constantly growing and our debt isn't overwhelming us and where we have to borrow just to manage the debt service. That is what matters to me. That's what keeps me up at night. That's what I worry about for my children. Not Epstein, not aliens, not a lot of these issues that I think a lot of people, not foreign wars either, to tell you the truth. I know. I'm a war hawk. I'm one of those military industrial types. But the reality is none of those things are the things that keep me up at night. The things I just mentioned those are the things that really, really matter. All right, folks, coming right back, we're going to talk about Adam Schiff and mortgage fraud. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Guess who President Trump thinks is a scam artist in Congress? Well, it is Senator Adam Schiff. Surprise, surprise. Those are Trump's latest words to describe the California Democrat over alleged mortgage fraud. Trump is now calling for Schiff to be brought to justice. Is he right or wrong? You decide. Trump writes on Truth Social, "I have always suspected shifty Adam Schiff was a scam artist. Now I learn that Fannie Mae's Financial Crimes Division have concluded that Adam Schiff has engaged in a sustained pattern of possible mortgage fraud." He continues, "Mortgage fraud, very serious. Crooked Adam Schiff, now a senator, needs to be brought to justice."
The Federal Housing Finance Agency sent a criminal referral to the DOJ requesting further investigation into Adam Schiff, claiming primary residence of his home in Maryland, according to a senior administration official. Schiff's spokesperson says he maintained a home in Maryland to use when working in D.C. They also say the mortgage lenders were aware of Schiff's intended year-round use of his homes in Maryland and his home state of California, like most people who are in politics. As a reminder, Schiff previously served as a member of the House Select Committee investigating January 6th riot when he was in the House. He responded to Trump's words, writing, quote, "This is just Donald Trump's latest attempt at political retaliation against his perceived enemies." So it's not a surprise only how weak this false allegation turns out to be.
That's a report from The Hill about Adam Schiff for brains. And to get some reaction on that, I want to bring in one of the pros. He's a heavy hitter. He's an early crypto investor, a Wall Street entrepreneur. He is the renowned host of Wise Guys on Newsmax TV, and all-around great guy from New York. John Tabacco, welcome back.
Ricardo, thank you for having me. This is another in a long list of terrible slights against one of the worst congressmen, senators, in my view, in American history. Adam Schiff has now taken a page out of Letitia James' New York State Attorney General playbook and decided that, well, if we can get a cheaper mortgage rate by saying it's my primary residence when he lives in California and his primary residence should be in California, he's, again, another Democrat engaging in my view, mortgage fraud. And, while Trump hammers at him, he comes back and says this is supposed to deflect from the Epstein situation. This isn't a deflection. This is a fact. And any of us, Rich, you, me, and anyone else we know would be in a whole heap of hot water right now if we did the same.
Yeah, listen, I agree with you. It seems like we saw it happen with Letitia James. We saw, and the irony was so rich. And now, again, the irony again is so rich. They wanted to put Donald Trump in jail for 400 years for this same type of thing. And I think I'd say what he did was way more on the level, right, than what they're doing. And yet he's just exposing them. I don't see anybody going after them. And for Schiff or anyone else to say that this is political retribution, I think that's so, I don't know, far-fetched when nobody's going after them. It's Fannie Mae looking into him. I don't think Fannie Mae's locking anybody up. John Tabacco, stand by. The music means I've got to go. But we're coming right back with you, and we're going to spend a couple more minutes talking about this, a little Epstein, and a little bit about what's going on in New York with this new Harris X poll, putting Curtis Sliwa in striking distance and showing Mayor Adams to be an abysmal failure. Don't go anywhere, folks. Rich Valdez coming right back with John Tabacco.
God bless you, because literally I think you represent, the new voice of America. What you say is what people are listening to.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
President Trump today angrily denounced the support of anyone in his ranks who cares about the Jeffrey Epstein case, a.k.a. a significant number of people in his base who, by the way, elected Trump after he pledged to release the Epstein files, after his surrogate, Elon Musk, told Tucker Carlson that billionaires were backing Kamala Harris because they were terrified Trump would release the Epstein list. Now, this latest kerfuffle started this morning with Trump's post on Truth Social, where he continued to falsely assert that the Epstein files are some sort of Democratic ploy. He wrote, quote, "Their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, and my past supporters have bought into this bullshit hook, line, and sinker. They haven't learned their lesson and probably never will. Let these weaklings continue forward and do the Democrats' work. Don't even think about talking of our incredible and unprecedented success because I don't want their support anymore," unquote. This same energy continued in the Oval Office this afternoon, where the president said this.
They're wasting their time with a guy who obviously had some very serious problems, who died 3-4 years ago. I'd rather talk about the success we have with the economy, the best we've ever had.
Best we've ever had. That's President Trump there telling us how he really feels. Jake Tapper reporting on that from CNN. And what's interesting about this is Trump seems to be, he's not trying to sweep it under the rug, right? Like a lot of people think, move along, there's nothing to see here. He's taking it head on. He's saying, no, there really is nothing here. And if you don't want to be my friend anymore, forget about it. I don't know. I want to get some reaction on this from our guest. He's patiently standing by from an event at a very prestigious location in Washington, D.C., and he's making time for us tonight. John Tabacco, welcome back. When you hear President Trump say this, what do you think? Is this a good move, a bad move? Do you feel indifferent about it? Your thoughts?
Ricardo, as you know, we spoke about it on Wise Guys a couple of weeks ago. This is causing a major divide in MAGA universe. Mm-hmm. And I am personally a little disappointed because Pam Bondi has given us some signals. These files are on my desk. We have lots of videos of Jeffrey Epstein with child pornography, and we have to black out the children's faces to protect their identity. And now they're saying, well, he didn't kill himself. He did kill himself. No one killed him. There are no lists. There are no videos, and I think Trump, he let out a lot of information about UFOs. He let out more information about JFK, and I really think it's a thorn in the side of Trump's legacy if he does not let the MAGA universe have some kind of closure on this. Like, there's got to be something. You can't tell us that a woman is in jail for sex trafficking children, and there was no one on the other side of those trafficking engagements.
Right, now, let me ask you something, John Tabacco. And again, not a defense. It's just this is the first thing that went to my head. If I tell you so-and-so was arrested for trafficking drugs, and we arrest this person, and then they tell me, well, who was he selling the drugs to? Well, we don't have that person. Does that make them any less guilty?
I don't think it makes them any less guilty, but I do feel like, Rich, as a capitalist and a constitutionalist, that if you were to make the case that John Tabacco or anyone else sold drugs and they can't say who you sold them to, I have a hard time taking that as a transaction that I should be penalized for, because if you were surveilling me and you had enough evidence to prove that I sold something, then you should have some evidence as to who was the other side of it. Otherwise, if there were no commerce, if there were no trade, if there were no other side, then it wouldn't be a crime on the first person. So it's tricky. And I guess, some of them were Jane Does, some of them were unnamed people. But at the end of all days, I don't understand. To me, if there was no sex trafficking and there was no list and there were no kids and there were no nothing, then I don't understand. And I'm not sticking up for her or making a defense, but why is Ghislaine Maxwell still in jail?
Right. Well, listen, I get that. I'm trying to make 2 and 2 out of that one. And I guess we're on different pages there. But I think she procured young women for child prostitution. Who she sold them to? Epstein. Who Epstein sold them to? He's dead. There's a court that, according to Dershowitz, and tell me what you think about that. Dershowitz says it's not Trump, it's not anybody else, it's this judge that has these things blocked out because of this case. How much of that are you buying?
Well, look, Alan Dershowitz was put in a really precarious position in this whole thing. He represented Jeffrey Epstein. and he represented some victims, and he was named as a potential person that was in it, and we all know that, he only went on one trip with his wife and his child, and but many people, he won every case. He's been exonerated, but at the same time, he's conflicted. And Rich, I just say, if someone's in jail for sex trafficking and we don't know who they trafficked them to, but we think it was trafficked to Epstein, and now Epstein is mysteriously dead, I think it just adds to the deep state intrigue that, well, the guy she was procuring young girls to give to him, to give to others, and now he's dead, so we don't know who he gave them to. So I think it creates, in my view, more of a culture of chaos to say, come on, man. What's really happening here?
I get that. I think, to me, it creates the same thing you get with Martin Luther King, the same thing you got with JFK, the same thing you get with so many of the government things where they decide to say, oh, that's classified, or oh, that's being redacted. But I guess more on that another day. John Tabacco, we're out of time on this one, but I want to have you back to finish that conversation. I also want to get your thoughts on what you think about Trump's tweet or Truth Social post a couple of days ago about stablecoin and some more legislation about that. So go back to your party. I hope you knocked them dead with your speech, and I'm looking forward to having you back on, brother.
Rich Valdez, the best in the business. Thank you so much.
You bet, brother. God bless you. Thank you. And amigos, we're going to your calls right now, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
After the guest leaves every night and we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America, and you sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
All right, amigos, that is the legendary Larry King, who started this program a long time ago and really took over for Long John Nebel, who was on the Mutual Broadcast Network way back in the day. And, of course, following that was the late, great legend himself, Jim Bohannon, Jimbo. For 3 decades, continued that tradition of Open Phone America. And now, you and me, we do it tonight. The phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. I want to go to our buddy Paul, one of our faithful callers, Boise, Idaho, streaming the show tonight, richvaldez.com. Let's go to Paul. Paul, what do you say, sir?
Thanks for taking my call, Rich. Wow, yeah, what an unenviable position that Trump is in. I'm sure he would like to just be able to let some of that information out, but it would be backed up by Giselle, his temp, Epstein's temp. So the majority of that information,
Ghislaine Maxwell?
Yeah, the majority of that information, she knows all of it. She knows the people involved in it. She was there the whole time. And so, I mean, if they want to go that route, they could do that and give her a sweet deal, 5 years off or whatever her sentence. They could do
let me ask
route.
you, why do you think they haven't offered her a deal yet?
Maybe they just haven't offered her the deal that she wants. You got a good point there.
Yeah, because she put out a statement a couple of days ago indicating that she was willing to talk about whatever she knew, but that no deals were presented to her. Now, that could just be negotiating on her behalf, trying to get out of jail. But there's a lot of talk, Paul, and tell me what you think about this, because this makes probably the most sense to me. There's a lot of talk about the entire Epstein operation of providing these girls or boys or whomever it was for people that wanted to have sex with minors was being run by an intelligence agency, a government intelligence agency. And some people believe it was, a foreign one. I've heard some speculation that it was the United States doing it. I don't put anything past anyone, but I'll say this. I think that that's disgusting, but I'm sure there's a lot of things that our government and other governments do that is disgusting. But if that is the case, right, that it was a government operation, foreign government operation, designed to get dirt on people of power and influence in other countries, and somehow, in order to achieve the goals that are afoot now, President Trump decides, as part of a deal to advance the interests of the United States, again, all speculation, it's part of my question, he says, I'll look the other way on this Epstein stuff. The guy's already dead. He paid the price. We got the other lady. The operation's over. They're not going to hurt anybody else ever again. I'll agree to stop talking about it. Maybe talking about it as much as he did and as much as the MAGA universe did was the leverage. And he finally got what he needed. So now we don't need it anymore. What do you think about that?
Well, there's some very influential people that have eight figures for a base salary that they have, let's say, and that can wield a lot of power, and it changes people's minds really quick when they hear of the type of money that can be given to them. And
so I'm not following though. Who are you saying is getting this money?
For my own.
I don't think you're going to bribe Trump. Trump's got plenty of money.
No, I'm not talking about Trump. He was not a co-conspirator in this whole thing. I think he was put in the unenviable position that he's in right now because there are some people in there that don't want it to be known that they're hebephiles. Now, a hebephile is somebody that wants teenagers, young teens, like from 12, 13 years of age up to 17. They're not pedophiles, they're hebephiles. Now, I sponsored a guy that had sexual issues and problems and had to be straightened out with the law. But nevertheless, that's something I learned from him, and you'd never hear that term. But that's exactly what Epstein was a hebephile.
I mean, to me, that sounds like a distinction without a difference, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to get down to brass tacks and call the guy what he really was, he was a hebephile. That's what I believe, anyway.
Got it. Whether your preference is for 12-year-olds or 5-year-olds, I think you're the same kind of scumbag in my book.
Yeah, I understand that, and I agree with that. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, you had Bill Gates on the pedophile plane. They call it the pedophile plane.
Well, let's play that out, right? Let's play that out, because I've had this conversation with my brother for a long time, like way before this stuff was in the mainstream news. My brother's been talking about this. I'll tell you something else he's talking about. For at least 6 weeks, he's been telling me, you watch, there's going to be a special counsel appointed just for this Epstein stuff, and it's going to be Jefferson Sessions, the former AG. I've been hearing that for a good 6 weeks, like heading into our 4th of July barbecue. So since probably mid-June or so. So maybe even earlier, early June. Now, if that happens, then I'll say my brother's conspiracy people are hitting the nail on the head. But so far, he's telling me all these people are going to go to jail. They're all going to be arrested. And meanwhile, the exact opposite is happening, right? We've got all the right people in place. We've got Bondi. We've got Patel. We've got Bongino. Everybody's doing a good thing. I see the work being done. I see that there's, operation after operation after operation where they're actually rescuing kids. They're ending this trafficking ring. They're ending that trafficking ring. There's so much work being done, and it's being overshadowed by a constant looking in the rearview mirror, almost trying to drive while we're staring at the rearview mirror because of handful of names or a list of names, which, again, I'm not trying to give anybody a pass. And nobody's paying me 8 figures, that's for sure. I've been arguing with my brother about this, saying, I don't think anybody cares. Even if people care, what they care about is the egregious things that happen to children. That's why people care. We want children to be protected. This finding out who did what, clearly the authorities know, right? So it's not like they don't know. They know. It's you and me that don't know. And I don't like the government keeping secrets, but I know they're going to do it anyway. So I think that's kind of where I land on this. And I never in a million years would imagine that we're ever going to show our hand, right? The government doesn't do that. The whole sources and methods thing, they just never do it, which is why they always play dumb on everything. So this is why we don't know who or how many people working with the FBI or for the FBI were at the January 6th insurrection that they claim happened, right? This war on America, this battle for democracy or against democracy. We don't know any of that because they keep everything a secret. Is that stuff going to be released? I'm very interested in knowing about that. I'd rather know about that than know who these people are that Alan Dershowitz knows about and a few other people know about. But anyway, my point in all that is I don't know that ultimately we're going to get this information because there's so many things that are classified for 50 years or 45 years, and then they do it again, and they do it again. And just using the examples of JFK and MLK, how do I, with any confidence, believe that today we're going to do it differently?
The kids out there that Biden's team lost. And if it puts a stop to that, too, then it's all worth it.
Yeah. Say it again. I missed the first part.
You made the point that at least it's put a stop to having the kids being brought to the island and tortured, right. Basically, is what happened to them. But beyond that, the 500,000 kids that have disappeared into the woodwork since Biden took office.
Right. Oh, yeah, the kids that came by way of the border.
500,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Last I heard was like 300,000, and they've gotten 10,000. But whichever the accurate number is, it's, that many too many. Paul, I got to take a pause here. I think they're kicking me out. That's why we were hearing the music. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, to the phones we go. Speed round. Let's go to Robert, Yucca Valley, California. KSFO, quickly, go right ahead.
Hi there. I'm just calling in regards to the topic right now. I want everybody listening, and you can too, go to vault.fbi.gov. After you go to that, go to the search. And in the search, click in there, the finders. Once you click on the finders, you start reading all those pieces of paper that are in there. And you will know unequivocally that the United States government is involved in child trafficking. That will end everything. Vault.
What does it end?
FBI. Vault.
What does it end? Robert, what does it end?
Pardon me?
You said that will end everything. What will it end?
That will end all the ambiguity because it's unequivocal. Just read it. Just read
it doesn't matter
finders.
If it's there or not. My point is, it's there, and it hasn't ended anything.
Exactly,
that's
because
the point
no
I'm
one's
making.
being held accountable, and that's the problem. No one's being held accountable.
Right. There. That's the point I was making. Exactly. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Folks, the music means I got to go. We're coming right back, and we're going to continue with your calls. I know a lot of people want to weigh in on this, people from Texas, people from California, people from all over the country. Don't go anywhere, folks. Rich Valdez, and we're coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be with you this Wednesday night. Hump Day, everybody. And it's 7 minutes past the top of the hour. Our phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. President Trump's been out there making a lot of noise about AI and how there's so much investment in artificial intelligence, and it's great for America. It's great for jobs, and apparently it's great for some people that are lonely. There's a bunch of AI chatbot companions. We're going to talk about that in the next hour, so stay tuned for that. And now I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in California, because Senator Adam Schiff, he's under the gun. Trump is beating him up on Truth Social about doing, some sort of misdeeds with his mortgage, saying that he lived in Maryland when he's really a senator from California, and that his primary residence was in Maryland, not in the other place. And again, why this matters? It matters because you get the benefit of the primary residence for mortgages, right? When it's a second home, you don't always get the same deal, and you get a better deal when it's your primary residence. So this is, of course, again, doesn't surprise me in the least, and I'm glad that Trump is putting stuff out there. Do I think anything happens? No. I mean, it seems like they're looking into it. He might get a slap on the wrist somehow. In Congress, that means they write something somewhere. You write something somewhere. They open an ethics investigation. They talk about you being, quote unquote, investigated. And then eventually they go, well, our findings are you didn't do it maliciously, and we told him not to do it again. The problem's been corrected, and he's a great guy. Love Adam Schiff for brains. And that's it. And that's typically how things work in Washington. I know Trump is doing his best to change a lot of things, and he's doing an amazing job, right? I mean, on the things that really, really matter most. Are we going to get politicians to not be crooked? I don't think there's any laws or anything Trump can change to change the posture of their heart, right? I mean, that's truly what we're talking about here. There's no declassification, classification, or bill that you can write that will legislate morality in many ways. And you can, and to some degree, you can say, hey, look, the Ten Commandments says thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, and a bunch of other ones. We can make laws about those, and people can adhere to the laws rather than the virtue behind the law, the morality of it. Okay, that's cool. But ultimately, being a decent person, being the type of person that really reads the room or reads the road or pays attention, right? We've gotten into a culture, a society, where people have lost sight of the overall picture, right? They don't wake up and say, hey, look, the people next to me on the elevator, the people next to me on the road, they're not my enemy. They're not my competitor. They're not my adversary. They're not stopping me from getting where I have to go. They're just a person just like me that's trying their best out here. We don't look at it. At least too many people don't look at it like that anymore. Instead, they do look at them as, they're like, oh, this freaking idiot driving. I'm lucky me. I'm stuck behind this guy today. Of all days, I get the slowest person in the world, right? Everybody's just so angry. And maybe that's just unique to my neighborhood, right? To New York City, North Jersey, the East Coast. But I don't think it is. I think that by and large, we've become, I'm going to use a word that a lot of girls use in the dating world. We've become more narcissistic, more self-centered, more focused on ourselves than focused on those around us. And I get that to some degree. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I understand why it's happening because, everybody's famous now, right? You are the star of your own Instagram page, the star of your own Facebook page, the star of your own podcast in many ways, the star of your own YouTube channel. So people have outsized digital personalities. And I get it. I truly do. I'm not saying I agree, but I understand. However, I think this has brought us away from being people that are humble, people that are helpful, and instead we're becoming people that are sometimes hateful. And when you look at examples of our politics and the way people put certain things together, even if it's in the name of good, right? Like, for example, we've got this funding package out of California, Governor Newsom, $101 million. $101 million for low-income apartments. Where? In the places that were ravaged by the wildfires in Pacific Palisades, which were a bunch of rich people's homes, big homes, Hollywood people homes, right? So is this bad or good? You be the judge of that. I'm not here to play Robin Hood with tax dollars, right? I don't believe that's the place of government. We're not here to say, hey, if you're an actor that put in 20 or 30 years in Hollywood, now you're in your 60s and you're trying to live your golden years in your beautiful house, has a great view, and it was just burnt down. Well, we want to get you out of there as quickly as possible so we can rebuild here and bring in people who didn't work as hard as you, and we're just going to give them that kind of life so that, we can level the playing field. I think this is wrong. That type of thinking has its roots in communism, right? That everybody should have the same thing irrespective of what we put into it. No, it doesn't work that way. I mean, there's a reason why some people on TV make millions of dollars and some people on TV make, 50 grand. Same thing in radio, right? It's you have to build a reputation. You have to build an audience. You have to earn your keep, right? That's why some people in surgery, you got surgeons that are out of school for a couple of years and they're rock stars. You got some surgeons that are out of school for a couple of years and they're not rock stars. They're sloppy. They're still learning. They're learning their craft. They're learning their entire surgical acumen. They're building confidence. They're not there yet. That's just the reality of life, right? Not everybody brings the same stuff to the table. Not everybody deserves the same compensation. So, I bring this up because you've got this madman, who I call Mad Manny, moron Mad Manny in New York, the assemblyman who's running for mayor, and he's leading the pack with the Democrats. It's funny. He's leading the pack of the Democrats, yet people consistently call on the Republican to drop out of the race. Even Republicans are calling on the Republican to drop out of the race. Why wouldn't we call on the guy who's polling the least? Right? The least. And I'm switching gears here a little bit, but this is just something to me has no logic. I look at the comments on Twitter sometimes about telling, if Curtis loved New York, he'd get out of the race. What? Curtis is the Republican who's going to run against whomever the Democrat winner is. That happens to be Mamdani. Now you have two other Democrats that don't want to go away. They lost fair and square. They're not the nominee. One is the sitting mayor. He's literally the mayor, and his constituents don't want him. His party doesn't want him. He lost. He's still losing. Yesterday's Harris X poll has him at the least about 13%. 13% compared to Sliwa, who's in a statistical tie because of the margin of error with both Mamdani and Cuomo. Mamdani is at 26%, 23% for Cuomo, 22% for Sliwa. A Republican in New York City. You tell me if those aren't good numbers. Those are great numbers for a Republican. Could they be better? Sure, and they should be, and they will be. They'll improve. It's literally the middle of July. But again, with that 4% margin of error, he's in striking distance. And again, I bring this up because people just make bad choices. Why on earth, if you want to use the process of elimination here, why wouldn't you eliminate the guy that's only polling at 13%? Adams, who's sitting mayor. I mean, it's clear as day. Nobody wants him. The people that put him there don't want him. That's why these other two guys combined have 40-something%. And he's at 13. Yet you've got some people in MAGA world saying, if you really love the city, get out of the way to elect the guy who sucks as mayor. Or the guy who sucked as governor. Let's bring him in. Today, President Trump's saying, looks like he might have a real shot at winning. He's polling exactly where Curtis Sliwa's polling. So if what Trump is saying is true about Cuomo, it's true about Sliwa. If Andrew Cuomo has a shot at winning at 23%, Curtis Sliwa has a shot at winning at 22%. Why on earth would we ask the lone Republican who won his primary, fought the primary the last time around, and won that. Why would we not ask him, right, to stay in the race and win this thing? He's clearly the only one that provides any contrast. Anyway, I put a lot of stuff out there, but back to this stuff with Gavin Newsom. I really want to get into that because I think it's a stupid thing, this idea, right? I think what we need to do to make housing more affordable is charge less taxes, right? Less property taxes. Stop beating up the homeowners, not beat up the homeowners more so that others could reap the rewards. Anyway, we're going to get to the bottom of that and what else is going on in California and Gavin Newsom straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
California Governor Gavin Newsom has unveiled $101 million in funding for, quote, multifamily low-income housing developments in multiple wildfire-impacted communities, with nearly half of the units to be filled with homeless people and former inmates. Meaning the governor of California is planning to build those low-income apartment complexes where fires destroyed neighborhoods like in the Palisades, Eaton, and Hughes. While trying to correct an article exposing Governor Newsom for his plans to replace single-family homes that burned to the ground with low-income housing developments, Newsom appeared to admit the plan, saying, quote, "This funding is not limited to the Palisades. It supports affordable housing in multiple wildfire-impacted communities." The initiative is said to alleviate the housing crisis, which displaced thousands of families across Pacific Palisades.
So there we have it. And of course, the neighbors are not thrilled, right? These are high-profile neighborhoods. And guess what? Now we're talking about homeless people and inmates being moved in to this area that was previously expensive to live in. And now I bought my house in this ritzy part of town, and you're going to give me inmates and homeless people. It's exactly what I was trying to move away from, right? Well, I want to get to the bottom of this with our guest, Susan Crabtree. She's fantastic when it comes to California. She's the senior national political correspondent at Real Clear Politics, and she's got a book called Fool's Gold: The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All. Susan Crabtree, welcome back.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Rich. Great to be back.
You bet. So I want to get your expertise, because I know, when you put the book together, you really had to leave no stone unturned when it comes to California. What is going on here with Gavin Newsom? Why did he think it's a good idea to go into one of the nicer neighborhoods that was just burnt down, actors and all sorts of people who were, up in arms as these fires were happening, and now say, you know what, we're going to bring inmates and homeless people there?
I mean, this is something that Gavin Newsom just believes in. It's a top-down big government approach to re-engineering housing and trying to address the so-called housing affordability issue in California and the homelessness issue that's just spiraled out of control under his watch. When he first said, when the crisis was at its worst earlier this year, when those fires were out of control because of mismanagement on the part of Los Angeles County and years of terrible environmental laws that prevent just regular cleanup and thinning of the forest up north, but in this case, just the shrubs and all around the Los Angeles, the Palisades. Really, I'd have focused in on the utility companies. I have a whole chapter in my book about how the utilities just spread money all over California to the Democrats, and they're in bed with the Democrats, and they've caused most of the fires. And Gavin Newsom's completely in cahoots with PG&E and these monopolistic utility companies, and so no one's doing anything about that. No, we wouldn't want to investigate what really caused the fire and try to prevent these fires in the future. There's an investigation into SDG&E, utility. Sorry, it's SoCal Edison in Los Angeles right now that caused the Eaton fire. We're pretty sure they caused it based on the video of the big, all the power lines going up in smoke that night. So we pretty much know who caused the Eaton fire. Palisades is still under investigation, but this whole idea that we're going to, he's doing what Rahm Emanuel always suggests: never let a good crisis go to waste. We have to, re-engineer from the government down, even though the government just showed how ridiculously incompetent it is. We're going to have the government come in and change these neighborhoods and try to address homelessness in the process of rebuilding Los Angeles, when actual homeowners who want to rebuild their single-family homes aren't getting their permits fast enough. I mean, it's ridiculous. Gavin Newsom originally said 6 to 9 months for rebuild. Now he's changing his tune. He's changing his tune on a lot of things. Now it's 1 year to 2 years for rebuilding. It's just typical California. It's typical Gavin Newsom his performative ways. He has honestly never done anything, never run anything in a way that he has to be productive. He's been given everything on a silver platter his entire life, and we can go into this. We go into it in my book. Everything since his college entrance, which he got from his dad pulling strings, and he claimed that he got a baseball scholarship to get into college, but I broke that down. There was no huge baseball scholarship, and he dropped out. He was on the JV team, not the varsity team. I talked to his former coach, and that was a big farce. It's a big farce. That's a story he made up. And then the next thing, he got, his entire wealth that he accumulated was all Getty money from his dad's connections as well. And the Gettys and the Pritzkers and the Pelosi's all getting around and supporting him. But his wine business, if you want to go into that, is all from Getty money. They gave the money, Gordon Getty, who was the main inheritor of the Paul Getty oil money.
Wow.
Provided all the money for his wine, his Plump Jack wine business, where he amassed all of his wealth, personal wealth, and they set him on his political career. So this is just performative politics. Gavin Newsom thinks he can podcast his way to the Oval Office while trying to re-engineer California cities the way that they envision them. Not there. When he is announcing his 101 million, you can talk about. There was a lot of discussion of climate change. That's going to re-engineer.
All right, so let's pause right here, and I want to go to get your thoughts on the National Guard when we return. So stick with me. Susan Crabtree, Real Clear Politics, author of this amazing book, Fool's Gold. We're going to talk about that and continue our Gavin Newsom discussion straight ahead. Don't go.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, the Pentagon is pulling thousands of California National Guard troops out of Los Angeles tonight.
That ends a highly controversial deployment ordered by Donald Trump that led to legal battles and political backlash.
Well, KCAL's Gio Insignares is live in downtown L.A. with more on this sudden drawdown. Gio.
Pat Rudabeh, good evening to you both. We know this affects 2,000 National Guard troops, according to the Pentagon. As we know, they've been stationed across L.A. for weeks, helping federal agents and guarding buildings like the Metropolitan Detention Center directly behind us. But local and state leaders have once again said that this mission has gone on for far too long and shouldn't have happened in the first place. After weeks on the front lines of ICE protests across Southern California, the Pentagon is now scaling back its federal presence in Los Angeles, ending the deployment of 2,000 National Guard troops, nearly half of the force is sent here back in June.
I am here to say that we've had an important victory.
Mayor Karen Bass holding a press conference at City Hall this evening, touting the news as a positive for the city of LA, saying the troops were deployed unnecessarily, disrupted the city's economy, and caused distress in the immigrant community.
This is a victory that is the result of our city standing strong and standing united and saying this was not necessary. I hope that the administration heard that, and that's why they made this decision.
And all of a sudden, they want to make it seem like this is, something that the mayor has achieved. Well, I want to go to our guest, Susan Crabtree. She's from Real Clear Politics, senior national political correspondent there, as well as the author of the book Fool's Gold, The Radicals, the Con Artists, Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All. Susan Crabtree, when you hear about this, I guess, victory lap that Mayor Bass is taking, what do you think?
Well, I think that it's absurd because those National Guard troops, when they first came in, there was a lot of controversy, but all of a sudden those riots started turning around. Now, the National Guard troops weren't involved in fighting anybody on the streets or rounding up anybody on the streets, or it was the local police that was engaging with these protesters and getting treated terribly, rocks thrown on them off of highway overramps, fireworks thrown in their faces. So all of a sudden the National Guard shows up, even though they're there. They were staying mainly around the federal buildings to protect them. But all of a sudden we saw a turnaround in the riots. And maybe the police maybe it was a coincidence, but all of a sudden the feds show up and people start getting control of the streets. So, having the threat there was enough, in my view, for the looting, the ridiculous protests, the way the police were being treated to end. So she can celebrate all she wants, but I think the small businesses are siding with Donald Trump on this one.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it's interesting that the report begins with the federal government is recalling the troops, not California succeeded in kicking them out, and I would think it would be welcome, right? That hey, thanks for helping us out. We're in over our heads, but it wasn't, and obviously they thrive in this mayhem. Do you think this is going to have a negative implication for Gavin Newsom, or is it so business as usual for Californians that they won't bat an eye?
You mean having these riots be coming up now and again with all these ICE raids? Well, California, it's controlled by a supermajority of Democrats in the state legislature, and they're posturing a lot. I just think that why are we going down the defund ICE road once again? Why are we? Wasn't that a failed message a few years ago for Democrats? I just don't really get why the Democrats think that this is something they're supportive of. So protests against ICE and treatment of ICE agents and so terribly. But at California, a lot of the politics have to do with amnesty. When Ronald Reagan provided amnesty for millions across the country, it provided millions for those living in California who were here illegally. And the political complexion of the state really started to change. That was a factor, as well as aerospace businesses leaving the state, fleeing the state because of its anti-business practices. So now the state legislature is full of Latino legislators and senators and assemblymen, and they got control of the unions and on down, and they are actually subsidizing these riots, as we know, with this Coalition for Immigration Fairness, the Turla organization that is getting state money, $34 million from Gavin Newsom and other entities. Los Angeles getting free housing from Los Angeles, free rent, and they're the ones that are promoting these protests. The first organization that was out there protesting on that Friday when a local official was detained by police and ICE because he threw his body in front of some of their ICE trucks going into a detention facility. So, it's actually subsidized by the state government, these protests right now in California. And we found, my co-author Jed McFadder and I found that this group Churla actually gave money to fight Gavin Newsom's recall. And then all of a sudden, Gavin Newsom turns around and the money they're getting from the California state government, which is our taxpayer dollars at work, rises from like 12 million to 34 million in a matter of a couple of years.
Wow.
This is just corruption in California.
Yeah, it's rampant. Yep. Wow. Well, Susan Crabtree, let everybody know how they get a copy of your book if they want to. Again, folks, the book is Fool's Gold, The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All. Susan, where do they get a copy?
You can get a copy on Amazon, or you can go to www.foolsgoldbook.org, and there's various ways you can purchase it there. And I have also on my Twitter, my x.com account, it's at Susan Crabtree. I have the Amazon link right under my name. You can get it there as well.
Follow her on X. Check out her work on Real Clear Politics and get a couple of copies of the book, one for yourself, one to give away for one of those beach days where you want to read a book and learn about how corrupt California is. That's the book for you. Susan Crabtree, I want to thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the summer, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
I would love that, Rich. You're always so thoughtful. Your questions are outstanding. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. God bless and have a good night. All right, amigos, we continue with your thoughts, your calls, your reactions. What do you think about California? What do you think about the Epstein files? What do you think about all the things we're talking about tonight? And don't be shy. If you're in New York, if you're in Oregon, if you're in California, wherever you are in the country, in between Florida, Michigan, Chicago, where are you guys at? I want to hear from you. Weigh in. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And to the phones we go, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. I want to get your thoughts on everything that's going on. Anything you want to talk about, we can discuss. But there's a few things that we're going to get into, and I want to just share a headline with you because this is a big one. Looking at this in the New York Post, it's also in the New York Sun. Let me see, where did it go? My goodness, there's so many ads in these things, it's hard to keep up. But here's the headline. Feds charge 3 Louisiana police chiefs in elaborate decade-long visa fraud scheme. How about that? Federal authorities have charged 3 current or former Louisiana police chiefs with taking bribes in exchange for filing false police reports that would allow non-citizens to seek a visa. That allows certain crime victims to stay in the U.S. The false police reports would indicate that the immigrant was a victim of a crime that would qualify them to apply for a so-called U visa, according to United States Attorney Alexander Van Hook, who said earlier today in Lafayette, he said that the police chiefs were paid $5,000 for each name they provided falsified reports for, and that there were hundreds of names. Look at that. These guys were stacking up for retirement on our dime so that we could give them Medicare and Medicaid and all other stuff. Unbelievable. There had been an unusual concentration of armed robberies of people who were not from Louisiana, Van Hook said, noting that 2 other people were also charged in the alleged scheme. let me see here. Those charged are Oakdale Police Chief Chad Doyle, Forest Hill Police Chief Glenn Dixon, former Glenmora Police Chief Tabo Onisha, and Michael Freck Slaney, a marshal in Oakdale, and Chandakrant Patel, known as Lala, who is an Oakdale businessman. Isn't that something? Wow. Anyway, let us go to your calls. I want to go to Holly, joining us from White River Junction, Vermont, WVMT. Holly, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Hi, Rich. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little noisy, but
good.
Are you on a speakerphone?
I'm driving. Sorry.
All right.
Don't want to lose you.
Yeah, just shout.
It's spotty up here. All right. So anyway, I was calling about the Epstein stuff because I'm very frustrated by it. Disappointed in Trump for not understanding. I still support him. I will, always will. I think he's great. But he doesn't seem to understand that it's not about revenge. It's about what is right and wrong. And people need to pay for what was done. I believe that guy was murdered.
Yeah, and he died in jail, and the other lady's in jail.
But still, those people were hurt. And I think that it's been buried. I think it has to do with our CIA and stuff. Who the heck knows? All I know is we're trying to get back trust in our government again. And by doing this, it's just burying it, and he's got to let stuff out. I agree with the people that have been calling in and saying that, he's got to release the stuff. And, yeah, of course, you got to protect the victims. But honestly, I think the Clintons set this up. And probably Brennan was working with him. Who the hell knows? But
yeah, there's so many unknowns. I don't disagree with you. Listen, I think if I understand people want something, I also understand his point that something was hyped up, and if I've seen that throughout, right? Not just with this issue, with many issues. There's a lot of things that get hyped up for people because of the emotional aspect that they bring to the table. And then you've got people that like to talk about this, and then it's clickbait. I could tell you in my own critique, right? I talk about the news of the day. That's kind of how this show works. Every now and again, I'll use some historical context, or, I'll go into some other news on other topics, not necessarily politics. But whenever I see someone who doesn't like me, but is on our side, the first thing they'll do is tell me, I can't listen to you. You never talk about what's really going on. I tell them, well, tell me what's really going on. And they'll say something like this massive amount of child trafficking, this and that and the other. And I say, well, we do talk about those things. And they say, yeah, but you don't say what's really going on. And it's because I don't agree with their particular theory on what's going on. They get upset with me. And I get that. And I think the reason that they are as adamant as they are is because you have these big influencers that put information out there, and they make a fortune on this. They literally make a fortune. I would have to work 14 jobs to make the money that they're making with this very highly emotional stuff. And really, my approach to this stuff is really the exact opposite. My hope is to totally take the emotion out of the news so that we could use logic to analyze it. So I guess we just come from different worlds. And obviously, while they're getting 20 and 30 million people listening to what they're saying, I'm getting 6 million listening to me. But I'm not going to sit here and create some sort of sensationalistic headline just to get people interested and keep telling the same story. So it's just a different approach to things. And I think those people have exacerbated this problem because they've put such an emphasis on things, right? And like I bring up my brother a lot. I have several brothers, but one of my brothers in particular, he loves this stuff, right? He is a junkie of this. It's you can talk to him for hours on end, and by the time you're done, he's going to have tears in his eyes of passion, of anger, of all sorts of things because of how wronged he feels by what's happened. And it's not necessarily that they tried a soft coup on a sitting president of the United States and spied on him and lied on him and tried to put his kid in jail, then tried to put him in jail, then tried to assassinate him. But it's how egregious and evil they are themselves, right? Not just greed and corruption, but it goes into their penchant, their proclivity for illicit sex with minors. And he'll go on and on. And I'm not saying I don't believe this stuff. I'm just saying there's bad people everywhere. And I know there's bad people everywhere. I had a brother-in-law that was a corrections officer, and he was assigned to a jail in New Jersey that only housed sex offenders. And the stories he would tell me about, we got a new one today. Listen to what he did, right? And he would, share, not names, but the stories. And crazy things that happen to people, by people, just sick stuff. So I guess I hear that stuff, and it doesn't move me emotionally. I think it's very bad, and I feel badly for people. But I'm not going to stop looking at things logically. I think, logically speaking, Jeffrey Epstein died in jail. Ghislaine Maxwell is behind bars. To me, this one is open and shut. People are adamant about knowing who these people are, and I'm not. I'm thinking if the government has their names, let them lock them up. If they don't have their names, they're not going to lock them up. If they have their names and they're not locking them up, it's because we made a deal. That's it. Time for me to move on. There's nothing I can say or do is going to make a difference there. Maybe that's where I'm wrong. But I appreciate your thoughts. Holly in White River Junction, Vermont, WVMT. I'll take a pause right here. We're coming back. The phone lines are jam-packed, 10 people waiting. We're going to get to you momentarily. Let's see. Texas, you're up next. Los Angeles, California, Chicago, Illinois, Coleman, Alabama, Montreal, Canada, and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, to the phones we go. It's the speed round. Mike DeSoto, Texas, KLIF. Go right ahead quickly. Quickly is faster than that. Wonderful. Get to your point before we run out of time.
I'm fast. Okay. So what I wanted to state is I believe in the theory that whatever percentage of taxes are taken out of the rich, the equal percentage of taxes is taken out of the poor. Basically, what I'm saying is...
Yeah. Like if you take 10% from a trillionaire, you should take 10% from somebody who made $50,000.
No, not should. It just happens that way.
Well, it doesn't happen that way in our system, but it should. I agree with you.
The poor lose when the rich are taxed.
Well, in real life, they don't. The poor don't pay tax at all.
Yeah, but they're more dependent on government.
They're more dependent on what?
Government. They're more dependent on government when
they're poor.
Tax the rich.
Well,
Right,
their
hey.
dependence on government has nothing to do with us taxing the rich, other than that's how we fund the programs that are for them. But ultimately, I mean, people that, let's say you make $40,000 a year and you have 4 children, right, and you're married, you're not going to pay any taxes. You're going to get a heck of a refund and child tax credits back. You're going to make money on the deal. So anyway, thanks for your call, brother. I appreciate it. Mark, Los Angeles, Ron, Alabama, William in Topeka, Tony, Montreal, Bill in Newark, Robert. We got a few guys on the line. Stick with me. We're coming right back. We're going to talk about AI boyfriends and girlfriends and your calls. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 3 of the program. In some places, you may not be getting this as the third hour, and that's okay. But it is the third hour of the show, 7 minutes past the top of the hour, and a blessing to be here with you. We're going to be doing a lot of calls this hour because there's been a lot of reaction to the Epstein stuff, a lot of reaction to what's going on with immigration, a lot of stuff with this spread of socialism across the country. So we're going to get to all of it, and I want to get to all of it with you all. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez is the number if you want to join us. And I want to start with President Trump today in the Oval Office. President Trump making it very clear that Pam Bondi can release any credible information that she deems fit. Listen to this.
Will you ask Attorney General Pam Bondi to release more documents to finally put this controversy to bed?
Yeah, whatever's credible, she can release. If a document is credible, if a document's there that is credible, she can release. I think it's good. But it's just a subject. He's dead. He's gone, and all it is the certain Republicans got duped by the Democrats, and they're following a Democrat playbook. And no different than Russia, and all the other hoaxes. They're started by the Democrats, and some Republicans, in this case I was surprised, but they got duped.
El Trompito, Donaldus Magnus, the 45th and 47th President of these United States, says that they got duped. Some people were duped. Now, I'm going to try to make some sense out of this and give you my 2 cents on it, and I've done over the last few days and the last hour, but just to kind of sharpen it. It's my opinion, me, Rich Valdez, that things like this really never come to light, right? There's certain things that are blocked, and they're blocked forever, right? That's just how it works. I understand that people voted for Trump with a hope that the status quo would end on everything, right? We're going to eliminate the national debt. We're going to make English the official language. We'll never hear another language spoken in our country. All these kind of pie-in-the-sky things that I don't think are realistic, right? But a lot of things that are realistic, like deporting illegal immigrants. I think that's realistic and appropriate and necessary. I think that being aggressive in trying to tackle our spending is important and necessary, and we need to be aggressive about it. And I understand the political implications of having to pass something like the Big Beautiful Bill, because if you don't do it now, you don't make good on your campaign promises. There's a chance that if you don't make good on those promises, people lose enthusiasm, and then you're not able to win re-elections during the midterms. So then you lose seats, and then you're never able to put your agenda through. So I get why we have to do it quickly and why we have to do it now. I understand all that. And I get it that, one hand washes the other. You're not going to get everything you want every time. It's about making deals. Deals means concessions, not me getting over on you, but you, the bad guy, if that's how you want to look at it, right? You, my Democrat colleague in the House or in the Senate, you need to get something for you, something I don't like. I have to give you something I don't like in order for you to give me something that I do like. And that is the nature of politics, right? It works that way. You try to amass enough leverage to have the influence of the power. That's literally the definition of politics. So I think there's that. And I think, if I had to speculate on this Epstein stuff, I think some portion of what people have said has been misconstrued. And some portion of it is also being kind of like, hey, it's nothing to see here, move along. I think there was very, very zealous people that needed to do certain things, wanted to do certain things. And listen, I get very passionate about my job too, right? And sometimes you realize that people that you think are on your team, right? As a matter of fact, they are. But your priorities and goals are not the same as theirs, right? And I experienced that in my job. I can only imagine how that, hits people in Washington, right? They all love America. They all want what's best for everything. But each and every individual person has their own goal. They have their own outcome that they're looking for and their own guidelines and parameters and how they can get their job done, right? So mine is, I'm looking out for you, the listener. I have to make sure that the stuff sounds good, that I try to give you the best of what I've got to offer, the best guests that we can get you the best information, to give you the inside track or a new perspective on something, so that you have something to scratch your head about and go, I didn't think of it that way. Interesting point, right? So you learn something, or at least your current learning or understanding of something is maybe challenged or strengthened. That's my goal. Right, then there's people in the control room. Their job, to make sure no curses go out on the air. Their job, to make sure that the music starts and ends on time. That's what they have to do. Then there's other people that are outside of the studio that are making sure that the right advertisers are on the show and that they're doing what they have to do and that we're getting all that done in time, in the right segments. So those are my issues in my part of the world. But that's no different than the law enforcement arm of the DOJ, FBI, Patel and Bongino, and Pam Bondi, not seeing eye to eye, wanting to get something done, right? They all have the same end goal in mind, but sometimes the end goal has nuance. And maybe there's a little bit of a clash that goes on, right? I get it. And then you got President Trump, who's literally running all of it. And he's not going to sit here and drop anchor and stop the momentum of the ship and try and turn the Titanic around for something where his immediate analysis of this is, all right, so let's get this straight. We want accountability here. We want to be transparent, and we want accountability. We've released the first phase of the Epstein files. They did all that, right? Gave a lot of information. And there were some redactions in it that were either done by the Department of Justice or, as Professor Dershowitz points out in the clip that we played yesterday, and I'll play it for you again in a little bit, at the request of judges that are handling this case. So now you have more information and some that's not available to you. Add in the people on social media that want to make videos, that want to talk about things, right? For those of you who are listening, and maybe you've heard this, maybe you haven't, during the first Trump administration and throughout, there were a number of sealed indictments, right? That weren't all indictments, but they were listed as sealed indictments on websites that were available to the public. And people were guaranteed, oh my goodness, everybody's going to jail. They're locking up every last bad guy. Accountability's here. Guess what? It's the 16th of July of 2025, right? Trump came down the escalator in 2015. That was 10 years ago. Almost to the day, right? That was about a week ago. We celebrated the 10-year anniversary of the escalator. So think about that, how people misconstrued so much of what happened then to now. And that's what I'm saying. I don't think people are lying. I don't think there's a cover-up per se going on. There might be certain things being withheld from the public, and I think that's a pretty common occurrence. I think that the Democrats are taking advantage of this and trying to drive a wedge in MAGA world. And I also think that we are trying to move beyond this, because when you look at this and you say, all right, is there accountability? Epstein got locked up. Is there accountability? Epstein actually died in jail. Or whether you believe that or not, that there's no Epstein today. Most people believe. Some think he's in witness protection and he's going to blow the whistle. Great. If that's true, then he'll set the record straight. Ghislaine Maxwell, she got in trouble for recruiting these girls and getting them to Epstein. She's in jail. She's paying the price. So I, too, if I were Trump and somebody tells me, oh, but we're arguing over this, I'd say, bro, this guy's dead. She's locked up. Move on. I'm trying to bring $16 trillion in investment here with Secretary Lutnick and Secretary Bessent. I'm trying to bring peace to the Middle East, to Europe, and to Africa, all at the same time, while we eliminate sugar from Coca-Cola and replace it with cane sugar, get rid of high fructose corn syrup, something I thought we'd never see because that comes from corn, and the corn farmers have an amazingly strong lobby. But leave it to the brass set that President Trump has to say, hey, look, let's make a deal. Plenty of things going on. So I think that's kind of my take on this, that I didn't think we were going to find out anyway. I'm not going to beat any of these people up. The bad guys are in jail. I want to know what you guys think. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
after the guest leaves every night, we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America. You sit there in this radio studio, and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Welcome back into the phones we go. Let's go to Mark calling us from Los Angeles, California on KSFO. Mark, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Hey, Rich, I love your show. It's new to me, and I guess because I've been listening to the last half an hour, it's great because I think it comes down to accountability. I mean, I'd love to see Giselle in front of Congress and straighten that out. But it's accountability. We got out here in California, it's a mess. You got Gavin Newsom wasting $200 billion on the bullet train to nowhere. And that money can be spent so much better. And he wasted, what, $60 billion or $50 billion on COVID. And now he's spending like $200 billion on the homeless situation. And all these things can be fixed in 2 minutes, but they don't do it. And can you imagine if you were a teller at a bank and you come up $100 short today? And then they say, well, we'll keep them tomorrow. Tomorrow you're $200 in the hole. Your numbers don't match. How long do you think you're going to have that job?
Right. Yeah. How many times can you make mistakes at work before you stop making them, right?
Well,
I totally
that's
understand.
What these guys, that's what Newsom and Bass are doing. Newsom and Bass are like, if you needed brain surgery, are you going to go to Newsom? No, because he's not a doctor, right? And that's the problem. These guys are elected, but they're not qualified for the job. They're totally incompetent. Bass is too. And they're across the country. These people are not competent to do the job. And they're wasting money down the toilet, and they're not accountable for anything. How much does it take? A teller is $1 here, $1 there. They're gone in 2 days. How much about these politicians? They don't know squat. How long do we keep the accountability factor without getting rid of them?
The problem, this is a political problem, right? Because you get 4 years once you've made your decision, right? Once the people elect these people, they get 4 years to prove whether they should be elected again or not. And sadly, we keep seeing these people elected again. Now, some people will scream that they're stealing elections, which I do not put past them. I'm sure that that's happened. But there's also the reality of it's very difficult to make the case sometimes because they own so much of the establishment, whether it's, the way they're educating children, the way they're educating young adults, how they get their news, where they get their news, what's said on this news, right? NPR, PBS, CNN, MSNBC. I mean, you want to talk about conservative philosophy. You've got, Newsmax, Fox, Times, right? There's not a lot of options to talk radio. There's so many options on the other side, so you're literally outnumbered. And this is why I think it keeps happening. Plus, you create a people, right? There literally are people that are groomed for this. These are people that are angry. I mean, I go through my Instagram and I see these angry people, and they're just like, I can't believe Trump. I can't believe conservatives. I put a comment on something the other day. A kid that I've known for years. He's a popular activist locally, Republican politics, and he's a professor by profession. And he put something about, I'm going to be one of the moderators on this. And when they heard it was him, they're like, oh, you're a bigot, you're anti-trans and whatever. He got into this whole kerfuffle. But I just chimed in when it was reported on by a local news outlet on Instagram. I said, oh, what a shame. I said, oh, I get it. No free speech here, even though this is supposed to be a safe space, quote unquote. Got it. That was my comment. And cue all of these stupid people start saying things like, free speech doesn't mean there's no consequences. Free speech doesn't mean you get to spew hate. Free speech, just one dumb thing after another. They truly believe this. They were hurt and offended to their core that this guy had said something disparaging about people that were trans. And for all I know, maybe he didn't even say it. That's just what they construed it to be. And I say all of that to say that this is the problem we have, right? There's not enough people that think like you, and there's too many people that think like those people in California.
now I don't think, especially with the fires, I don't think anybody likes these people at all. But my other point is, and the accountability is a big part of it. But if you look on YouTube years ago, Steve Croft is interviewing Pelosi on a stage and asking her basically about insider trading, and she acts like an idiot. She doesn't know what he's talking about. He has her she has him repeat the question twice. Then you got the thing with the quid pro quo. They charged Trump, which he didn't do. And Joe Biden's on YouTube. You can look it up right now. And he's saying, if you don't fire the prosecutor that's going after my son, you're not getting $1 billion
in Ukraine.
That's a quid pro quo. So if they impeach Trump in 2 seconds, why does it take years to do Biden? Okay, and treason.
Not years. He never got impeached. Because that's my point. Because they figured out how to get the majority, how to hold on to it. I mean, they were able to get Liz Cheney. They were able to get Adam Kinzinger, right? Justin Amash. They were able to pick off a few Republicans that were, in my opinion, weak or complicit, one or the other. But that's how they do it, because they use this power that they've amassed, just like a labor union, right? Just like the commies do. They use all the power to get what they want, by hook or by crook. Mark, excellent point. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Ron, Coleman, Alabama, WDBT. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Thanks for taking my call. I want to try to say this, as fast as I can, as much as I can. Donald Trump had signed for that release. He said, and he's doing so much for America. Just now passing about education, where our school children, and all these big wins and stuff. And now, just these last couple of days, the media's bringing in this that Epstein was a British agent and blackmail from Israel, and all this mess is coming in. That's the hoax he's talking about. Please just watch what he's doing instead of listening to what the media's trying to sling it around to be. This man is working for America, and that's what they are trying to break and separate us Americans from him.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point.
He has done so much and continues to do so much, and I appreciate you, Mr. Valdez.
Ron, thank you, brother. I know we've been talking on the radio for years now. You're a great American, as my buddy Bill Cunningham says, and I appreciate the call, and thanks for your kind words. God bless you, brother. I agree with everything you said. I think you're spot on, and this is why I'm not up in arms about this stuff, because I realize the best is yet to come. Montreal, Newark, Delaware, Charleston, South Carolina, you guys are up next. Don't go anywhere. Rich Valdez, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
Get to know him. You know, this is not about having any kind of hard line. I think that if anybody is skeptical, I would say get to know him. And once you get into a room with him, kick the tires yourself and make your own assessment instead of just kind of making assessments from what you may see on television.
You always cover the best out there, and you cover it honestly, because you are the best out there.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez, and we're going to get to your calls momentarily. The phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Every now and again, I like to do as many calls as I can, because sometimes I'm a little long-winded, or the guest is long-winded, or occasionally long in the tooth. I'm just kidding. But it's important to get this feedback for me, because this is why I work at this hour. There's a lot of people that do radio shows at this time or even later that do the show in the middle of the day. And then they could sleep all night. They could go to all the cocktail parties in the world. I don't get to go to any of the cocktail parties because I'm doing my show prep at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night in order to get on the air 9, 10, 11, and this is what I like to do. I love the idea of doing live late night radio. To me, it's important. To me, it's special. But whatever. This this is important, I think, for all of us, because this is a tradition started, again, I always say it, but I like to pay homage to those that have come before me. Larry King, Open Phone America, doing it like it was nobody's business, and continued that tradition for 3 decades. Jim Bohannon, steady, solid, the first I don't want to call him the first gentleman. I'll call him the gentleman of talk radio, Jim Bohannon. May he R.I.P. And now you and me, we get to do this thing together. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez is the number. So if you want to join the late night national conversation that we're having, our town hall conversation, you know the number. And I always love to hear from our people in New York, from each end of the country, right? From everywhere, honestly. I want to hear from people in Oregon, from people in California, from people in New York, people in New Jersey. We got great stations in New Jersey. And we got stations from all over the country. I always want to hear from you. Everybody in between, Florida, Texas, Delaware, South Carolina, North Carolina, because we get these different perspectives. And sometimes you see some common ground amongst everybody. Then you say, that's interesting. And that's the part of this job that I love. That I'm able to, in the few hours we're together, I'm able to walk away with this thing about, I just talked about 6, 7, 8, 10 people, whatever, from all parts of the country. And this is the sense I have about this. And that is something I think most jobs don't afford most people. So I consider myself honored and blessed. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. 833-4-Valdez. All right, let's keep going. Bill has been patiently waiting. Bill is calling us from Newark, Delaware, WDEL. Bill, go right ahead.
Hey, I wanted to call, first of all, thank you very much for what you do. I think you're doing, as a very not religious person, you're doing the Lord's work here.
Oh, thank you, brother.
Giving people a voice, and especially hearing all the. So I work I do nights and weekends, and usually on my way home I hear you, and cool. When I was driving home, I heard you had a caller earlier who was talking about his friend who was not a pedophile but a hebephile or whatever he was calling it. But that is something that really struck me as something, because I have always taken an issue with this. But he was saying he's a hebephile, which means they're 11 to 14.
Yeah.
But there's also the ephebophile, or I think that's what they call it, but that's like 15 to 18. And then there's pedophiles, which is supposed to be less than 11. What bothers me about that is that, to me, everyone who's under 18, you're all pedophiles.
Yeah, I think most of us look at it that way, whether we're technical or not. I think that's the consensus.
They make these new names for what you would call someone who assaults, let's call it toddlers, infants, whatever, versus someone who's in pre-adolescent and then, adolescent. To me, I consider that all pedophile. It makes no difference to me if it's under, at least under 18, that's the least we can do. But
I got to say, if you tell me 16, 17 versus 6 months old, like not walking, I'd probably get a little more angry at the person that's doing that to a baby versus, somebody that's a year away from being an adult. Call me crazy. And I don't normally split hairs, and I agree with you. It's a distinction without a difference. But just the fact that you mentioned that there are people that are interested in abusing babies, that's just sick.
Yeah, and actually there's a very interesting story if you look it up from Delaware. There was a doctor, I want to say it was in Milford. He was arrested, I want to say it was almost 10 years ago, but they found documents, all kinds of video recordings, everything, but from 6 months old up to 16 years old. And they actually almost, he almost got off on a technicality, all that stuff. It just drives me crazy that when somebody says, oh, I have a friend who just likes 14-year-olds, so they're not a pedophile, they're something else. I don't believe in that. And nowadays, the Democrats, or at least the left, I guess you would say, call them a MAP, a minor attracted person.
Yeah, that's another crazy thing.
What a ridiculous thing to call somebody when you can just call them a pedophile.
Right, and there's these people out there trying to make that distinction, saying, look, these are people that are attracted to kids sexually, but they're not acting on it, so therefore they're not child predators, they're not pedophiles. And to clarify or to add context, the caller that we had earlier, he is involved in a support group, and the person he was referring to wasn't a friend. It was somebody that he was sponsoring that was trying to overcome that addiction. But like I said, I agree with you on the fact that I don't care if they're little kids, in my opinion. It should be off limits. Bill, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate the support. Newark, Delaware, WDEL in the building. Let's swing it over to New York, my neck of the woods, WGDJ. Jane, go right ahead.
Hey, how are you? Yes, and to agree with you, yes, if you are going to touch a child and think about a child, I did that for 30 years. I counseled. You are a pedophile, and there's no... Now, what I want to tell you is I knew Rush for years, and I used to call Jim Bohannon.
Yes.
There are more people addicted to your show than you can possibly imagine. And what you need to know is you are just about the best out there. And you do such a great job, and you just relate to people so beautifully. And more people are just listening to you, and really you talk very calmly, and you make sense to people, and that's important. And I thank
Jane, I couldn't hear you. Say it all again. No, I'm kidding. Thank you very much. You're so kind. I really do appreciate it. I try not to fish for compliments, but I take them when I get them, and I appreciate it. And honestly, you can't do any of this stuff without people like you. I have the good fortune of inheriting great callers, great listeners that are very eloquent. Very, very eloquent, really. People that call in that have something good to say. Every now and again, you get people that don't have something good to say. But for the most part, very, very well-versed people that really, I believe, contribute to this late-night town hall conversation. You know, where we're all...
I hope they could even give a quarter of what you give. So
well, I mean, this is my job. But you guys take out of your day while you're unwinding and, you know, drinking your Saratoga water or, you know, kicking back with a glass of wine, a cigar, a burger, whatever it is people unwind with nowadays. And you know, say, you know what, let me call this guy. I'm going to go out of my way to talk on the phone with a bunch of millions of strangers listening. You know, I always appreciate it because I love listening to talk radio. I can do it forever.
I do too. It's
but
great.
I'm not a caller. You know, I've called talk radio 2 times, I think, in my entire life. I've called, maybe 3. One time I was like 20 years old. I called Curtis Sliwa to argue about something. That was a quick call. It was very busy. It was New York City, WABC. I was in the car. Another time I called WWDJ. That's in New York City. The WWDJ. That's the station in New York City. Kevin McCullough was doing afternoons there, and I called Kevin McCullough just because he said something that really hit a nerve with me, and I agreed with him, but it was an important point, and I called him quickly, and I was in and out. And then one time I called Sean Hannity. Just because he said something that struck a nerve, and I was like, whatever. And he called me, and I was like, oh, wow.
My word.
Yeah, but those are the 3 times in, I don't know, 20 some odd years that I've called talk radio. And I think each of those times I wasn't really that good at calling into radio shows. You are fantastic. So many of our callers are so good.
Well,
you know, people don't realize.
Out there.
You
truly are the best out there, Rich. Seriously.
I appreciate it. And to you and all the callers, I want to say, you guys get a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes if we have time before the break. And I'm interrupting you half the time.
No, you're not.
And you're still able to make a point.
Thank you.
Well, God bless you.
Are, kiddo.
Thank you. I'm trying. I'm trying to survive out here. Tell my boss I appreciate it. Jane in Saratoga, New York, WGDJ. By the way, that's Paul Vandenberg country. Shout out to Paul Vandenberg. He did a great job filling in on the program, as did Dom Giordano and J.D. Lake when I was on vacation. And I really appreciate them doing that. Anyway, we're going to get to your calls and more straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, and let's go to Veronica calling us from Los Angeles, California, KVTA. I didn't know we were still on KVTA. I thought they changed that to sports. Anyway, Veronica, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hi, thank you. What's on my mind? I was just listening to the previous bit a minute ago for just absolute by chance. I don't usually listen to AM radio or any radio. And anyway, I just caught I just caught the tail end of the previous speaker, and she was going on about how the Democrats funded the protests, and it really irritated me. It grinded my gears. Didn't like it, and shortly thereafter, it said to call in if we had any opinions on the matter. And so here I am on the phone.
Well, tell me what grinded your gears? What did you not like?
Well, I mean, all of it. Just the fact that, and I know it's not like she came up with this idea. It's been, talk of the town, as I said a minute ago, that it was funded. The protests are funded, which is already blasphemy. But to hear her try to break it down, that the groups that provide housing for homeless people, the fact that they're provided funds to provide homes, and then just that the same group was protesting, that somehow that means that the protests were funded. Like, no, that's not how you connect those dots. That's not what that equals. Like, 1 plus 7 doesn't equal 0. I mean, they're not connected. They're provided funds to provide homes, and that's what they do.
Right. Well, I mean, I think some would argue that if they were actually providing these homes, you wouldn't have the homelessness problem that you have in California. I think they're leading the nation by like 5x on homelessness.
Huh?
There's no other state in America that has a homeless problem like California. So I think people are, kind of throwing their hands up saying, how do we keep throwing money at a problem and yet not getting the results?
Well, just because the homeless problem hasn't been solved doesn't mean that there's a third random, miscellaneous, unrelated connection to them being funded to start protests.
No, I get that. I think that's a fair point.
Can't see the future,
Sure. I think that the point that the guest was making, Susan Crabtree, she was pointing out some of the research that she found for her book, which is called Fool's Gold, which talked about how the same organizations that were receiving government contracts happen to be the same organizations, not just in this case, but in many cases, that were the first ones to mobilize people to protest whatever. And this is something that we've seen at the federal level through USAID. There was plenty of money going to a bunch of different causes in the name of literacy, in the name of diversity. And upon further investigation, we find out, wow, these people were just kind of getting people into the fold to be the opposition. So in effect, you could draw the conclusion, at least at the federal level, that our tax dollars were funding things that were antithetical to what people were actually trying to do. And I think that's why they lost their funding. So I get where she was coming from, and I get where you're coming from too. I think it's fair to push back. I just think it's not a matter of fact, let's just say, that every single dollar that was used to go to XYZ organization ended up being a dollar used in protest. But I think it's worthy of conversation and definitely some scrutiny to say, was some portion of it used for that? And if so, why? Do you think that's fair?
I would say no. I would say no portion of it was used for that, because at the time of funding, there was no way on earth to possibly know that these events were going to occur, unless those were also planned in advance, despite everyone else's.
Oh,
and then also, why would these programs protest? I mean, of course they're going to protest. These programs have beliefs, and if our president is ripping those beliefs and rights away from people, of course they're going to be out on the streets protesting.
Yeah. Well, before we go, what right has been ripped away? Because I hear that often, but I feel very free. I don't know about you. can you tell me one or two rights that people have lost since Trump was elected?
I mean, off the top of my head, people who are citizens working their jobs being arrested, obviously. I mean, the reason that these
Are you a
protests
citizen of the United States?
Yes.
Have you been arrested?
But I'm a young white girl, so no, I have not been targeted. Luckily,
Well, I'm a
because
young
I-
Hispanic, and I've also not been arrested.
Well, that's
Do you-
your
do-
luck.
Well, can you give me 2 or 3 names? I'd love to interview them.
Well, why don't you just watch the news? They'll give you names. Sorry that I don't
No.
know. I'm
No,
not
they're
sorry,
not.
actually. Thank God I don't know someone.
They're
personally.
not giving names. I think that tends to be a fabricated comment that citizens are being arrested just to grind people's gears into thinking that somehow citizens are getting arrested. But in reality, it's just not a thing. And that's why I ask for names, because I really want them on my radio show. It's a big radio show, one of the top 100 in the country. And if that's happening, I want to talk about it. But yet nobody ever says, hey, they did that to me. It's just really not a thing. Veronica, thank you for your call. I appreciate you listening. I hope you'll continue listening. You might be surprised what you learn on a program like this. Anyway, folks, we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, to the phones we go. Speed round, wrapping this bad boy up. Let's go to John calling us from Kerwin, Kansas, KRVN. John, go right ahead, sir.
Yeah, I guess I think that with the investigations that we've funded, say to P. Diddy, federal indictments and what have you, and Epstein, okay, Epstein's gone and died. Giselle Maxwell's in jail. We paid for that investigation, and I think the names of the rats in the woodpile. He had videotaped the people in compromising position and blackmailed them, and they were worldwide. Leaders and rich people from all countries went there. That should be revealed. We funded that investigation. Forget Maxwell.
Yeah,
Forget
well,
Epstein.
John, I think the first part of what you said, and I'm not pushing back or disagreeing with you. I think I'm just making a point here. And the point I'm making is you're right. We funded the investigation, and it was investigated, and it was adjudicated, and it went to court, and he was found guilty, and he was put in jail, and he died in jail, and she was put in jail, and she's still in jail. So we have results, and we have an outcome of the investigation. That part I think we got, right? We got our money's worth. Now, in terms of people that are being protected, I think this is a larger argument. Can a judge protect the name of a witness? Can the judge protect the name of somebody who flipped, right? You know, let's say you arrest somebody for buying drugs and you go, I don't want you. I want the person supplying you. Like, how did they get Epstein? Is that why we're protecting these names? I don't know the answers to that, but I know that's something we do a lot in law enforcement. So all good questions and all good points. Robert in Charleston, I meant to get to you, but the music got coming. Thank you for your calls, amigos. Hasta la próxima. Take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.